Hello everyone, welcome to the next session on ABAP on HANA. In the last class, we have discussed about basics of SAP Open SQL, how to write SQL queries in SAP ABAP, what is the difference between Open SQL and native SQL. We also saw the basic concepts of database like ACID properties, atomicity, consistency, isolation, and durability, normalization, and all the different variety of database statements like DDL, DML, DQL, and TCL. We understood the difference. We understood the definition of transaction in SAP system or any other system when you talk about software development. We had also discussed some optimization aspect of how you can minimize the data transfer between the backend and the front end using different techniques like join and aggregate functions. Towards the end, we were also trying out an POC to push down our code, writing a select query which works on HANA Studio and then pushing down this query into the database basically to produce the same result. And I was trying to show you the performance improvement in terms of time, what these both queries are taking. But I could not show you because I forgot the name of the timer API in ABAP. So ABAP gives you a timer API. With the help of that, you can count on the time, how much time your report execution is taking. We will do that. We also were discussing about how would you probably like to do a performance tuning of your programs in your custom package. So code inspector checks are more like static checks, which won't give you an end-to-end idea about your performance priority list, what you would like to fix in your productive environment, because you need more of like real time data from your productive system to find out which SQL statement or programs are taking majority of the time. We discussed about some tools and their disadvantages, and then we came out to the main reasoning behind using SQL monitor tool, and how would what are all the questions this SQL monitor tool will help you to answer, including which of the business process, transaction, and report taking most of the time in your productive system. What are all the SQL profile of my main business processes? The most expensive SQL statement in your productive system, and which business process or entry point is causing a trigger to this SQL statement. And for that, we had just introduced the new transaction called SQLM and SQLMD. I didn't show you anything in the system, but just introduce the or set the background for this. And then just a typical guideline once again, which is the most expensive and most used statement takes the highest priority for the development of your object. Then SWLT, which is SQL performance tuning worklist, which would help you to combine both the code inspector as well as the runtime results from SQL trace tool or SQL performance tracing tool, and then get your main priority items which you would like to work on your system, rather than everything which your code inspector is guiding you to fix. Yeah. So find, improve, and explore. So let's quickly, just before this, get into system and try to complete the exercise which we were checking. So I would go to the program which we were actually writing to see how much performance improvement you would gain in terms of pushing down your calculation logic to DB layer, with that simple example which we had prepared for the list of items. So let me just quickly show you. Go to source code library in Eclipse. So here we had written one program yesterday where we were writing some MySQL statements using our ABAP program and trying to pull some data from the SAP system. So let me just quickly open that program. I think it was ZDemos, which was giving me some data. No, ZDemo read parameter partner sales. Yeah, this is the program where I was using OpenSQL with select statement as a loop. You can see this is select and select, and this is also was giving me a warning in code inspector check saying that there's a nested select, which means select and select is a loop inside that another select statement. It's a nested select. And then of course you can even simplify this thing using OpenSQL, but I just showed you a code which was purely in HANA Studio, and then I had written this code to do a code push down into database layer from ABAP layer. This is something which we will get into more detail in upcoming chapter, but just for curiosity perspective, since some of you have asked for it, I have done a direct code push down of this select query into the database. So I just let me go and check the program name which I had created to do this code push down into DB. Was it YAB01? No. Native code conventional ABAP demo open SQL. Let me check the program name where I have done that. Is it demos? I forgot the program name. Maybe I will quickly check in to my ABAP system and see that. So both were actually producing the same result. What one was with our OpenSQL with a loop, select and select within that another loop, and another report which I had developed. Let me do an F4 here and search for that. And I think you should get the one which was more recent one. Let me just check with my information system and just put here author name as my name, as developer user, and last changed on yesterday's date. So I'll get to know the report name which I had created yesterday. Okay, so let's okay, and I think it was ZADBC my Q. That was the one where we did code push down. Yes, I think that was the one. You can see here we are calculating the final result without any loop and loop, directly by pushing this code down into database. So towards the end, I wanted to show you some performance improvement, what it gives you. So for that, I've got the API which would clearly tell you the time which the execution of your program takes to produce and print the final result. So let me start a timer when I start this particular program. So I declare a new timer data T1 equals to, and the API in ABAP is CL ABAP runtime, and there's a static method called create HR hour timer. So this will be collected into a T1 variable, and once my program gets over, I would collect this information in another variable called T2. Yeah, and then once this is all done, I would calculate the difference between T1 and T2, and since the time is in milliseconds, I would also divide it by hours, by 1000. So I would just say total time, and then say T2 minus T1 divide by 1000, and then just do a write statement, or I just do a write statement of total time. Save this. Let's do a quick check. T2 cannot be converted to a number. Why it is saying that? Am I doing something wrong? Data T2. Yeah, this is all fine. We had declared the T2 as another variable. Oh, I actually first have to create an object. So create hour timer is an object, guys. So this is an object which I create and then get the time. So I say hello timer, and then I declare another variable called T1, which in which I would ask this timer object to get me the time. So I say get runtime. That's the right thing. So first I get the timer object using create hour timer. It gives me a timer object, and then get the time from this timer object, and then finally collect the same data in T2. So use again the same object hello timer. And now you see it's not showcasing or showing me any help in my SAP GUI. There is a setting in SAP GUI with which you can also get help from known keywords. So you can see this tiny button here at the bottom right corner in SAP GUI. Click on that, go to code completion, and mark suggest non-keyword from text also. So this would also show you now the help or automatic code completion without even considering the keywords. So whatever you have typed in the previous statements, that also it will consider as your help. Save this, and now you see LO, you see it's showing me all my local variables as well. So LOT, and you see timer, and then I say get runtime. So it helps me like this, and then I calculate T2 minus T1 by 1000. Since the time is in milliseconds, I convert it into seconds and show you the time which my report takes. Activate this program, and at the same time I would first go and does the same thing in my ABAP program where I'm using OpenSQL with a select and select. Just does the same thing over here as well. Okay, it's saying logged. I have to just quickly restart my Eclipse. Let me just do that. In the meantime, maybe I'll show you guys this thing in my ABAP system itself. So let me just quickly start my Eclipse once again. So sometimes Eclipse will give you the lock error though your program is not being used. So don't panic. You can just simply go and restart your Eclipse, and then you can continue. So I will go to now my another program which is using OpenSQL in SE38. So I come here and use read partner sales, go to change, and does the same thing with regard to time, calculate the total time of execution for this report. So let's go to change. And by the way, this report we have written yesterday line by line. So never copy paste the code yet again in these as well. So data, LO timer object, and then you say CL ABAP runtime, get hour timer, control space, sorry, create hour timer is the API in this. And then we just use this timer to calculate T1. Get runtime. This gives me the T1, and then at the end I would just do a T2, get me the runtime, and then just do another data variable total time. So say T2 minus T1 divide by 1000, and just print this final result. Total time taken is total. So let's run this OpenSQL report first and see how much time this report is taking me with OpenSQL with a nested select to get me the required result, which I am also producing with another query, pushing down the code. Execute this. You see it gets me the result. I scroll down. The total time which it took is about 92 milliseconds. You can see here, less than a second or so. And now if I just quickly go back here and run this one, let's see how much time this takes. And you can just come down and see it just take about 10 milliseconds. So you can already see, guys, the difference between both of these reports. And that's clearly, I think now, clear for you the picture of what do you mean by code push down. Yeah. So 92 milliseconds to about 10 milliseconds. You can see the difference, guys. It's about 90% performance improvement when you do a code push down, isn't it? That's what true ABAP on HANA is about. And that's what you got to do in a company when your company runs on top of HANA DB, your ERP system. The complex reports or the programs which are taking huge time, you got to identify those culprits in the right order, in the right technique, using right techniques, not something which you would say and optimize everything. You would probably first find which one to optimize, and then you will apply the techniques which you learn in the current course, where one of the technique is doing a native SQL code push down using HANA query, which you tried already in HANA Studio or ABAP on Eclipse or HANA on Eclipse, and then do a code push down using ADBC, ABAP database connectivity. We will discuss about ABAP database connectivity and its APIs in detail, but you can clearly code this example as or can observe or get a feel of what is the main benefit of using code pushdown. Isn't it amazing? So let's quickly come back to our topic of analyzing the results. So there is a question, Anubhav, I just recalled what I wanted to ask. If all the tables like VBAC, EKQ, BSEC have different name in HANA, like you mentioned SNWD, no, they all have same name. So if you come here to your ABAP system, if it changes the table name, it changes the whole ERP. SAP won't do that. They won't disrupt things. So if you have a Mara VBAC, you would have the same table even in your HANA system. So if I just say, okay, this doesn't have the ERP system, it's pure NetWeaver system. So you would not see even a VBAC table in your HANA DB. Okay, it's not the ECC system. It's not having the ERP functionality. It's pure NetWeaver, the technical release of NetWeaver. Okay, so it doesn't have functional modules like PP, FICO. All those are not part of it. It is pure NetWeaver server, which we have. It has also the sample EPM scenario and data, but it doesn't have the ERP relevant tables. But of course, the table names remains same, absolutely same in HANA DB. So but remember one important thing, you got when you're querying in HANA DB, you got to make use of schema name before the table name. When you're querying in HANA Studio or using Eclipse directly on HANA. But when you're running from ABAP system, you don't need to do that, because it is connected, of course, to the same HANA schema, and it automatically sends the signal to this HANA schema without you putting a prefix as schema name unnecessarily. This is one point. Another point is when you're writing native queries, you also have to specify the client field value. So if I quickly switch to HANA Modeler and try to do a native query, so remember you have to probably give this the name of the client field value. Okay, I think the connection is lost. I have to quickly go to my cal and get the IP address. So public IP address is what I need to get quickly from the cal, or maybe I can get it from here itself. Right click properties and just go back, delete and create 02 HDB, and then we have here an account called SAP A4H and my password, master password, to connect to my HANA DB. So your client dependent tables can have data in database in multiple clients. So whenever you're firing a query on your HANA DB directly, make sure that you don't forget calling or putting the client field in your select query. If you don't do that, you are doing a mistake, because there can be data from in multiple clients in your database table. It may not be in this demo system, but in productive system there may be. Okay, though I'm not selecting the client field, but let me just quickly search the sales order table with all the unique client field names. Okay, let me just do that quickly. So I want to now fire a query on sales order table, which is in the schema, and want to see what's the value of client field in total. Is there distinct client field value in my sales order table? Yeah, so that's what distinct clause is all about. And just run this, and let's see, it has only right now one client, guys, in the table, but it may have that in your SAP ABAP on HANA system. In your Mara table, your database is connected to multiple clients from ECC, and then you have client dependent data. So whenever you're writing the native SQL queries, don't forget to specify the client. I will show you how do you pass the client value from the ABAP system also, when we will see writing the native SQL queries. So basically you'll use SI mandate to also pump in this client value into the system. So this is your ideal way whenever you're writing a native SQL query, directly pushing down the code into HANA DB. Remember, this is important. Your table name remains absolutely same. Why are we working on SNWD table? Because reason one, we don't have the actual tables like Mara, VBAC, VBAP, all these tables in the system. That is reason one. Reason two, this is the standard way of giving training. So if you have learned ABAP, or you would see my ABAP videos, you would say I'm using SPFLI, SFlight, all these tables. I need sample tables. I need sample data available in the system to train you guys, to give you business cases, to give you real business like scenarios, and then write my queries and write my or perform my operations or write my above programs on top of these sample scenarios. That's the main reason I'm using SNWD table. There is actually VBAC table, which is your sales order table in your ERP system. You're right, you would not use SNWD for productive scenarios, but for training purpose, I need to showcase you real time or real business like examples. How can I do it in this NetWeaver system? So SAP NetWeaver comes pre-packaged with these tables, where anybody who would like to understand these techniques, understand the business, um, you can use these sample tables. So no one knows tomorrow you become a trainer and you got to give examples to your students. What will you use? You will use some sample tables wherein you can showcase these capabilities, you can train them, you can explain them, the idea behind having things, and also give some demo examples with some demo data. You don't want to play around with your productive code. So today, let's say you want to do some training and you want to also showcase the performance tuning in production system. So you won't fire insert statement in your production system to do performance tuning for training purpose. So there are these tables, SNWD underscore star tables, which you can use for product for showcasing real time like scenarios to anyone, or if you want to try out yourself something in the system, you can actually do it in these tables. And there is also a nice feature which NetWeaver gives us called data generator for EPM scenario. I think the transaction code I forgot, maybe let me check if I remember the transaction code for that. There is a transaction with which you can generate the test data using this EPM scenario. Okay, so using EPM scenario, you can make use of these transactions to generate test data and then showcase, your students, or you can try out things in the system using these transactions. So there is a data generator transaction in SAP system for EPM scenario as well. I forgot the name. So what I've done is I have already shared this EPM scenario document in our blog. You can download and check that. But let me quickly see if I can find the transaction code in SE93 for EPM scenario. So all the transaction code for EPM, I just put EPM star EPM, and then I think we should get it. Yes, SEPM underscore DG is the transaction data generator for EPM. So if you have a system where you have these EPM tables and you don't have a data, what you can do is you can come here and say recreate the data, and you can mention how many purchase orders you want. So and I can say I want 22 22 lakh purchase orders, I want 22 lakh sales orders, I want these things to be generated automatically in the system with new products. I can execute and it would generate these sales orders and purchase orders for me in the system. Similarly, you can go ahead and generate invoices which are delivered, not delivered. All these test data you can generate in the sample system. You see the sample company name is ITEIO. So you can also generate, fill in the employee table, product table, line item table, all that you can do it in these tables. This is purely for the purpose of training, mentoring, and trying out things in the system without affecting your day-to-day business. Yeah. So that's what you can make use of it for your learning purpose, these EPM tables. So code pushdown is querying the DB directly. No, there is more to it. We have techniques like CDS view, that is also a code pushdown technique. We have techniques like ABAP managed data procedure, where you can also do data intensive manipulation logic like if statement, case statement, looping, all what you do in ABAP. You can write complete procedural logic. It's basically called SQL script, where you can perform a lot of your performance or intensive calculations, imperative logic directly into EMDBs, ABAP managed data procedures, and do a code push down using that too. So a lot of techniques. You can build information model directly in HANA. That is also kind of a code push down, because information models, their queries are generated at runtime in HANA system, and then the results are also produced in HANA system, and then you can consume directly these views or these procedures what you create in HANA in ABAP system using proxy object technique. We'll come to those different techniques in our upcoming chapters. I will show you how to build information model in HANA DB. I would treat you like you don't know anything about attribute view, analytical view, calculation view, what they are in HANA database. So I will teach you all those things in this system and then consume it finally on ABAP. So other trainings, other trainers, if you go, they expect you to know this information model pre-exist in the system. They will just show you creating a proxy object and consuming, which anybody can do. It's a kid like job, but real knowledge is how will you build if in case in your company you've been hired and you've been asked to build an information model. Can you do that? So I don't want you to be just batsman or bowler. I want you to be an all-rounder. So you should be able to go to the depth and create information model yourself, and then can consume these information model directly on ABAP. Okay. Okay, can you please include that PPT code pushdown asked as interview? I will have a dedicated session on interview questions. What are all the different things or interview questions which people will ask you when it comes to code pushdown? You will, once you learn these techniques, you will understand and you can tell these answers yourself. So I don't need to brief you right away about these things. As and when we progress slowly, you will start understanding these things and you will start yourself telling the answers of these questions. Okay, great. So let's move on then. So where we were talking about static code checks. Static code checks are not sufficient enough because a real production system is about 50,000 concurrent use, 50,000 business users in a week, 130k ABAP SQL statements, 20 billion SQL requests, 140 billion records in database, firing on database table or getting changed, created, deleted in a week in a production system. And that's the right place where you would like to do a performance analysis, but at the same time you don't want to hamper your business. So SAP provides you this new performance SQL profiling tool available from 7.2 SP12, NetWeaver 7.2 SP12, and then you can make use of this tool. There is a tool improvement also. There is new transaction called SQLM or SWL. Okay, what was the transaction? So we were also discussing about this transaction SWLT, which gives you the priority list, combining both your code inspector static results and your SQL monitor trace results. So we'll discuss about it. So let's quickly first jump to this tool, which is called SQLM, SQL monitor tool. With the help of that, you can start the trace in the system, and then once your business is executing the transactions or performing or making use of system day-to-day time or timely basis, what it does, it asynchronously keeps on collecting the data and dumps it into SQL monitor table. And then you can use SQLMD transaction to read the data and download this data as a dump in your system, and then upload it in ABAP system, because that's where you would like to now combine it with the code inspector static result and get your priority list based on these rules of the game, which means something most expensive, taking a lot of time in real business, and it's also used widely. That is my highest priority. So that's what our idea is. And again, idea is to find out answer of these questions which I had put down. Which of the business process takes most of the time in my productive system? What is the SQL profile of my main business process? What is the most expensive SQL statement for my production system? And which business process is triggering that? So these three questions I will show you how can you answer just by with this single tool called SQLM. So if you remember, what I've done now, let me tell you what I've done. I have lot of ABAP programs in my system. So you can see a lot of ABAP programs I have created in our system. Let me quickly show you in ABAP on Eclipse all my ABAP programs, and some of these programs have bad programming statement which I have written intentionally. So as a good programmer, now you know the golden rules of SQL. But let's say in your team people are not that experienced and they've done by mistake writing some nested SQLs or maybe some old implementation which is now you would like to improve or find out the main pain points, because business is asking for performance improvement because your company invested on HANA DB and now they expect some result out of it. Everybody does it. You have spent money on training and you expect some return out of that training, and every company does it because all are profit making organization. They expect if they spent on HANA, they've spent connecting or hiring consultants like you and as an ABAP expert and HANA ABAP on HANA expert. They expect you to find out the problems in their custom development, custom projects where there is a room for performance improvement, and give at least priority list of what needs to be improved by any technique we will discuss in future, but first is to find the places where improvement is required. So I have done many programs here, and what I've done is actually I started the trace last week, and then I have executed these programs in a loop. So you can see here this program which I have executed 200 times in a loop continuously. And then again I have some more programs here. You can see here this one. I have executed this particular insert statement 75,000 times in my system. Yeah. And then I have another program here. You can see I've executed 10,000 times this report. So just to showcase you that, or produce some data so that I can show you some results in the system which you can relate it to more like your true real-time results. So that's what happens in real time. As I showed you in the last class also, this is what typically happens in a production system. You have your business processes, you have your transactions, you have 6,000 concurrent users using your ERP system, and they're continuously running MM01, VA01, or your custom transactions, and they're using the functionalities which you developed in your custom code, your Z reports, your Z transactions. Yeah. So now since they are using it, you would like to know answer of these questions, like which is the most expensive one. So what you need to do is go to transaction in SAP system called SQLM, and here you should just activate this trace. First of all, click on all servers, click on activate. It would start the trace, and then leave it on for some time, maybe a day or 4 hours or 5 hours or so. Okay. And then after 2 days or 3 days, come and click on stop. Once you click on activate, you will also have this button enable deactivate. You click on deactivate, and it will then deactivate the trace. It would stop collecting the data, and then you can directly go to transaction SQL MD, or you can also display the data right from here. So when you go to SQL MD, this is the screen which you will typically get. So what I've done in past is I have last week you created some reports, and I have also created bad reports, like that the reports which could cause true performance issue, nested SQLs, uh, selecting fields unnecessary, select star, though I am not using all the fields in future, thus still I did a select star, not using joins, using nested selects, using maybe you can also have in real time. What you can typically have is, let's say there is a SQL statement, and this SQL statement is a loop, typically a select and select, yeah, which we saw it yesterday using basic ABAP knowledge. And then you have end select, yeah, and then in this you are calling a subroutine, perform get more, yeah. And then this subroutine what you are calling here, hope all of you understand subroutine. It's a reusable unit of your program. Just like in ABAP you can reuse a function, and this subroutine you are calling another select statement. Yeah. So this is your subroutine get more. So earlier what used to happen in this performance tool, which is SQLM, that if you are calling a select and select, and in that a subroutine, and that subroutine is calling select statement, you can never get in a trace. It was not possible to get the trace of, or it was not the system cannot tell you that you're doing a nested select, which is a deep means here if you have directly a select and select, and inside a select statement, system will tell you. But if you are calling a subroutine, and that subroutine is further calling a select and select, system cannot tell you in old versions of NetWeaver. With NetWeaver 7.5 SP5, SAP have improved this performance tool, and now you will also get the list of results in case if your select statement is calling a perform, and that perform is further calling another select statement. Okay, that is also possible now. So here you have this subroutine get more, and this is calling the select. So this now performance tool can also find you these kind of nested select statement. This is one performance tooling improvement in NetWeaver 7.5 SP5. And now suppose this SQL statement, or this again they are in a function, and this is being called by three different programs. So you have a program one, and then you have a background report, which you are running a background report, background job, which is running of course a report, and then it is also calling it. And you may have, you know, some other program or function module which is calling this select statement. Yeah, so now you see these are all called entry points, guys. Okay, these are all called entry points to your select statement. Now, are these programs are the culprit? Anyone? Are these programs are the culprit? Are they are the problem for your performance? Are these programs are the problem for your performance, or is this SQL statement is the problem for your performance? What is the problem here? Is the program is a performance problem, or is your SQL statement is a problem? Yes, it's a SQL statement, of course. This is the performance problem for you, not the program. But you want to know which business process, which transaction or report is causing this guy triggering, and that you cannot get until you do a performance trace in your productive system where real business users are using it. Because in development system somehow you can even get it these entry points, but it won't give you adequate data to tell whether program 1 was used highly, whether background job was used highly, or function module was used highly. Because in productive system only you will get to know who is using what, whether the with the program it was called by 100 times this select query, with background job this report was called 1000 times or 1 lakh times, and with the function module this was called only 20 times. So these are all three entry points to call same select query, but they're calling this select query different frequencies. These are called entry points. Okay, so in productive system now you want to find these critical entry points for a problem. You know a problem, this is what your static code check will tell you ki there is a nested select, but static code check won't tell you that this particular select query was called 1 lakh times by this background job. It will not tell you the static code check data. That will be told by SQLM, your SQL performance monitor. That's what it will tell you. And it will also tell you how many times this query was called by this background job, by this program, by this function module. So there are three entry points. It will also tell you how many times it was called by these entry points. You can also look at a different perspective on the same data. Now I want to know this select statement was called how many total number of times. So now the first practice perspective is this, what are all the entry points, but second perspective could be how many total number of times my select query was called. So from the statement side you want to see now how many times this select query was called total. So can anybody tell me in this case what is the total value which will come? Anyone? So total three entry points. So total would be 1 lakh plus 100 plus 20. So that is another perspective from here you would like to know. So you see, if I go back to my question, so first question is which business process or entry point takes most time in my productive system? What is the SQL profile of my business process? And which is the most expensive SQL statement for your productive system? So from the statement side also, you have 20 statements which you identified could be a problem in your package. But how do you know which was called maximum by multiple entry points? So you have to do this kind of analysis on select, and that's what SQL monitor will tell you. So what I've done is I have activated the trace, executed those reports, which has called my select queries and reports internally multiple times and has produced the result when I stop it. And if I just quickly want to see the results, so I go to this transaction here and just open the date, put the date as last week date when I collected this data. And now you can see here, you can select the time range you want to see the data. You can also select which package you want to select the data or check the data for. So I would say for my local object get me all the performance data. You can also filter only by object name. You want to see only for certain report, certain entry point, you can mention that. You can also filter based on request type, whether this request have come from a remote function call, or it has come from a report, or it has come from a background task or upgrade task. Also that you can filter based on entry point. You can filter, let's say I want to see how many total number of SQL calls by made by this particular program. I can mention the program name. Then I can also filter by table. Let's say you have a most critical table in your system like Mara table. You want to only see data for Mara table, which are all the SQL statements or entry points hitting your Mara table. You can do that. And then this is important, aggregation. Aggregation means I want to check the data based on source code position, which means based on entry points or based on request. Yeah, so this is what I was talking about, the perspective. So if you want to see based on entry points, the first aggregation is this, by source code position. If you want to see by select statement side, total number of calls made by multiple entry points to the overall select statement, which is the most expensive SQL statement in my system, you would go by second aggregation perspective, which is by request. And on what basis you want to sort your data? By default, when the list appears, so I want to say total number of DB execution I want to sort, because that's the most important or immediate thing I would like to address. And then you can also say maximum number of records. Please note, this is not the number of records which your query has got. This is basically the result list number of records. So 200 is a good amount. Actually nobody would change all 200 statements or all 200 findings. So this is basically the number of findings you want to sort or get it in the result list. So 200 is a big number. I would probably want to just get last 10, the last top 10 problematic things in my system which has taken the maximum time in terms of my transaction or entry points is what I'm now getting for my local package. Let's do this, execute, and now let's see what it produces. And you see this is the top 10 priority problems and based on entry points. So you see entry point, the program name, this is the program name. You can see performance DB check, and this has got total DB time. This was the total DB time, which has got total DB executions. So it has got these many total number of database calls which was made from application layer, total number of database time which it has taken, DB mean time, which means per statement how much time it took. So one select statement, how much time it took. So you see one select statement took only 21 millisecond. Okay, but you see 21 millisecond, which means your select query which you written is good, it's not taking too much time. But a high value here, the total DB time, high value represents that this was called in a nested select, because that's the only reason why you would get the DB time higher. But again, you can further sort this. So the moment you come to this list, the first thing you need to do is select total DB time and sort it in descending order. And you see this is the most expensive report or most expensive transaction of your system, which is taking the maximum time in your system. So this is the answer of your first question, which is the most expensive business process in your system. This is the one. Of course, this is again with respect to duration of your trace. So let's say you are using your most expensive or most important business process on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday in your company, then you should probably apply the trace on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday only, not on Thursday and Friday. Yeah, because that's the time when system is basically, or the users are actually using the critical business process. And you see total DB time which it has taken, all these times are in milliseconds. It has got 11,957 executions to database, and this is the total database time it has taken. It has got total number of these many total number of records it has fetched from database table. And you see mean time is very high here, which means your query itself is taking so much of time to pull the records, which means you're actually you're writing a query which is pulling lot of data. That's why the mean time to fire or run this query is very high. Yeah, mean DB records, which means in one single request it is, you can see that's clearly saying 91 lakh 92,000, or I think it's 9 crore in 19 lakh 27,956 records it is fetching. that's why the mean time is also high, because these many records if you're fetching, you would take a lot of time. And if by any chance somebody called this guy in a nested select inside a loop, you would at a end you will see your huge amount of db time. You can see it's taking. On the other side, you see, look at the below query, it's taking only 0.6 uh, 0.6 second, which means it's in milliseconds. So 0.684 milliseconds it's taking. And but still the total db time is very high, which means it is a clear indication that system is calling, or you're calling basically in a nested select. You can also just select these initial columns and right click and say freeze. So right click and say freeze these columns to scroll on the right and see some more results. So you can see here, I select this and just scroll to the right, and you can see it's telling you the package details, the procedure, the processing block line, which is the subroutine, which is actually calling it. It's a subroutine, you can see, which is calling this SQL statement. And what is so important here to notice is this. Let me just quickly show you that value. The important value which you need to understand is, let me just take it down. There is a something called time taken per session. So that value I want to show. Okay, it's not coming here. Mean db records program. Yeah, it's not coming here, but what you will see here, it is telling you the report name which is causing this SQL statement to trigger, and also your SQL statement itself. Now if you want to directly jump into the detail, now one more important thing guys, you can see this report. This report may have other SQL statements, okay, which are also causing performance problems. So you see same report is also coming down. Yeah. So this result, what you see here on this screen, is based on entry points, the most expensive calls to your database based on entry points. So you can have multiple select queries which are written in a single report, which are causing problem for you. So all those lists will come here based on entry points. So now you see this is the report. These are all the reports which are the culprits. Let's say top three. If you look at, these are all the three reports or four reports which are the culprit. And for each report, which select query is causing the maximum time, it's showing you. Now if you want to drill down more, you can double click and system would take you to the details. So let me double click on this line and let's look at the result in more detail. So this is the entry point, and see it directly navigates me to my uh, program, and you see it's pure example of nested select. You see you are actually calling as flight data, and then further on inside this you're calling as book data with select star. So this is definitely a very good example of programming by some of my developers, and this is what is causing truly me a big problem in my system. So this has to be changed. And you all know that for improving the nested select, the best way is to use join or for all entries in itab. These are all the two solution or remedy which you would ideally do when you have an nested select, isn't it? Or you can probably use the upcoming techniques which we will learn in this course in upcoming chapters. Now if you again see here, the mean time for per one execution of select query, it's very less, but overall time is very high, which means this particular statement was called in a nested select. So this kind of a pattern, if you see, the mean time is low and the total number of db time is so high, which means you are always running in a nested select. Okay, always in a nested select. This is what typical pattern of a nested select is. Okay, it also shows you the minimum record, maximum record. So but major data to analyze is this db execution time, which you should focus on whenever you are doing a performance analysis. Now what I typically do is I dump this data. Okay, so how you can export this data is quite simple. Just go back to sqlm, and now you can just export this data to your computer, and now you can again give the package name, export only top records by, and then you can export this data. and import it to a different transaction, which I will show you. So in your production system, you activate the trace, you get the data, but you typically don't compare or do much of analysis in production. You simply dump this data in a local file. So I've just put $temp and say export only top records, top 200 maybe, and then say execute. It would dump the data into a file. Now it's saying creating a file. Where shall I store? I saying store it on my desktop. So you see it's now dumping all the data into a file and keeping on my desktop. So this way you dump it, and then you later on upload this in your development system to do a comparison along with code inspector checks to find your best set of priority list which you got to improve against the guideline. So now again, so first question which we had was answered, which is the most expensive business process or entry point in my productive system. Second is, which is the most expensive SQL statement, or what is the SQL profile? So SQL profile also you have got, which was showing you multiple reports, and for each report which is the most expensive SQL statement. Now if I want to look at from the SQL statement perspective, which has been called by multiple entry points, you can just do that, but this time you got to sort the results or look at the results from a different angle. So come down and this time just do a aggregation by request, and now execute. Again I have to put my package name. So typically you would put your Z package name over here, which your company or you guys are doing a development into, and again I select the date on which I generated the trace. So to generate this trace I had to spend like 4 to 5 hours in a day, and then I've generated this because I had to execute those complex reports, or basically reports in the loop, start the trace, run those reports, stop the trace, and that produced some result for me. So about 4 to 5 hours I spent on that day last week producing this kind of data to showcase you some real like or system like data. Execute this. Now this time it's by request, and you see the uh, uh, most expensive entry points per transaction level over here. So earlier result was based on the SQL statement level, and now here you have it based on the program level. So you see Z performance DB is only listed once, and if I just also show you based on sorting total DB time, which is the most expensive program, it's Y functional DB check is the report name, which is the most expensive report name in my system. Yeah, it is total time which it is taking by running all the SQL statement which are there inside this particular program is this much. And you see the total DB time is 94% of total program execution time. So in program you have data variable declaration, internal table declaration, some more calculation logic. So that is the total time here, and total DB time is this. So DB time is always less than the total time. So this total time adds up to the DB time plus the time taken to create variables, to do a lot of other things. So all that it is being done, and that's your total time. And what is the percentage of DB time? It's 94%. So 94% of the time your program was talking to DB. Very important. So you see here your total program time, only 17% it was talking to DB. Rest all is your ABAP logic. So there you are not worried, because there is no room for code push down in this case, because there's nothing which HANA can help you. This is something with your application coding you got to support or you got to improve. You see here it's only 14% of your ABAP program. So let's get into this. I double click. So this is something related to your ABAP program performance. And now when I double click, you see it's showing me the time taken per statement wise. So maybe I'll just quickly go back and take the one which is the most expensive one. So I will come on the top and just also freeze these columns quickly to show you some more data. Right click and say freeze, and just look at some data on the right. And now you here see mean DB records again. Once again, how much time it took to read the select query from database. DB mean time, this was the time taken to fire the select query and get the data. And these are all the one set of records. These many records this particular report has fetched in one shot from DB, and that's why the mean time is also higher. And now you see total number of internal sessions 152, which means This is the program which was called 152 times. And you see this another program 8433 times this program was called, which means this is the most used business process in my company, isn't it? Number of internal sessions is equivalent to number of times this program was called, because it will allocate an internal session the moment you start execution of a program. An internal session will be assigned by SAP, in which all the memory for your data variables will be created, all your internal table, all your variables, work area, all that will be created. So this is the most used business process, and the total time for this business process is this much which it is taking. So this is the first candidate of your improvement, most used business process. This is comparatively less used business, but again it's taking high time. So now you know your top list of two top programs which you should probably go and improve. These are all the two of them which are called most of the time in the system. Let's investigate further. I look at the right side columns, and I think they are again same data, maximum time taken by DB, minimum time taken by DB. What is the overall request response time between the DB and the database, and the total number of records which have been transferred between the DB and application layer. So all this is what it is saying. Now if I want to see which are all the SQL statements which are contributing the highest in this particular report, which is used the most, I double click on this and it will take me to the next screen where it will now show me the drill down based on SQL statements. So this report might have called 5 SQL statement. Now out of those 5, which is taking the highest time, I double click, it will now show me a drill down of which SQL statement taking the most time of my report. So now you see these are all the 4 SQL statements. So there are 4 SQL statements in this report which are executed, and now you see this SQL statement is taking the highest time. 91% of the time in the total DB time this SQL statement have taken. So now I know this is the culprit. So this is the highest use process, and this is the SQL statement taking highest time. You found the actual problematic guy. Yeah. And if I double click, let's see what it shows me. It will directly take me to this SQL statement, which is the culprit. So if I double click here, so this is my most used business process, and this is inside that business process or report most consumed, most time consuming SQL statement. So you see here, this is the most time consuming SQL statement which I have in my system. So what am I doing? I'm selecting some data here. Then this is again a select and end select. See, it's a select loop, transferring huge amount of data from backend database to front end. Most time consuming statement. This needs to be changed. This needs to be improved if I want to improve performance of my maximum used business process, isn't it? You can drive this kind of results or output based on this type of analysis. You can't do it based on the analysis in some development system. This has to be in the production system, finding the real culprits. So this is a typical example of select and select, which is a loop, and your code inspector will also give you some suggestions. So let's dump this data and now go to, let's say I go to now my development system, and I will go to SQL performance work list transaction, where I would now go ahead and compare these two results. So the transaction code is SWLT, and here you will go to static checks. First of all, select the inspection results, and you remember yesterday we produced some inspection based on this particular inspection ID. I select this, I choose code inspector, select the inspection, go to SQL monitor, select the snapshot, and select this is snapshot which I had generated already in the system. You can also create a snapshot by uploading the file which I just downloaded. So what I did is I created a snapshot. So I gave some name, then I gave the file name, the path which I got downloaded from the transaction earlier and executed. This creates a snapshot, and now I select that snapshot over here in this transaction and I click on execute. So this would now combine both the results together, both your SQL static check results and your results of your uh, SQL performance trace. So here you would get the true priority list. So you see, this is the maximum time which is taken, but I am more interested into something which is used the most. So if I just go on the right side, within bytes, so most used business process, which is the most used, maximum records, minimum records, DB time, DB max time. I want to look at, or now here you see this analysis is based on select statements. So which select statement is taking maximum time? So this one is what we had found, which is the most used business process. 8,000 something executions were there for this. So if I double click, you can see here DB executions 8,000. Oops, I also see the another one. See, this one has taken the maximum DB executions. So sorted based on DB execution. This is having the maximum database executions. Total time is this much. So you can now decide which one you would like to fix first. So the one which is used maximum and taking high time is what you would like to fix first. And if I select here, you can see me see the details here, which report, which is the entry point calling the select statement. So if there is a select statement which is being called by multiple reports, multiple programs, all that you will get it here in the bottom on the left side. Here you will get the SQL monitor results based on entry points. So maybe if I just go just by the DB time, the maximum called DB time, this is the report, this is the table which was called by system, and it has taken the maximum time in my system. And you see this is the report, this is the entry point. Right now there's only one entry point. If there would have been more entry points, it would have told me here. And then on the right you see code inspector findings. So code inspector was already telling you when you did a performance DB variant check on this, that there is a field which is selected in select star, but there is no use. Then there is a nesting of DB operation, select statement nesting. And there is also large table which was selected without a where clause. These three code inspector findings were there, which nobody addressed. They released the code to production and it has caught the maximum total DB time in your system. That is something which now you can know what is your priority and how to fix it in this single transaction, isn't it? You can also see the effort fixing it. It's giving you some effort of fixing. Severity also it is telling you. Priority, it was code inspector prio 1 issue. Okay, so combining these two, code inspector result and the result of this, would actually give you some idea of how you will fix and what will you fix. You will also find here all the list of entry points on the left side. So right now I think all of them have only one entry points, all these select queries. So that's why it's showing one. But if you have more than one entry points to a statement, system will tell you all those entry points at the bottom. So in this case, you see this report was called and there were two entry points. Actually it's unresolvable include name, but I don't know, there are two entry points in this case. So this way you would see the code inspector finding plus also the performance finding together in a single screen, and with this you know which is your priority list, what you need to look at and fix it. That's about finding the right statement or the room for improvement. Where should you improve? Okay, so taking the real-time data from production and comparing it with the static code data to find what to improve, what was the problem. Code inspector was already telling you you didn't fix it, and now you know this is causing a problem. So if you fix these two findings, definitely you would get better results, and this business process would run good in your production system. Your business will be happy. So since now we have identified the problems, we will look at solutions. So that's what will be our upcoming chapters, which we will focus on. What are all the different techniques as an ABAP on HANA developer you can use to improve the performance? So for that, first I have to showcase a business case to all of you. what business case or business scenario we will be taking. Again, it will be dependent on this EPM scenario, EPM database table. We will write a scenario. First of all, we will write a bad program, and then we will slowly see the improvement by using different variations, different open SQL variations, which would improve your performance. Using code inspector, you can improve your performance. Using CDS view, using native HANA development, using information model, using AMDPs, using code push down, like we saw in yesterday's class, direct HANA database query, we got 90% performance improvement in that case. So that's what we'll progress slowly and build an end-to-end POC at the end, consuming or using new techniques, and consume this data in a Fiori app. That would be our future goal from here onwards. So let's look at now this sample scenario. What am I going to build? So you all know that we have a sample EPM scenario where we have this sample company called ITEIO, which deals in computer products, selling these computer products online. You have customers of this ITEIO company who raise the sales orders, and then ITEIO checks the stock if the product is available. If not, then it creates a purchase order to its supplier. It Supplier invoice this company ITEIO, and then it receives the product from the suppliers. It does a post goods receipt, and once it is available in the stock, it gives this product to the customers. Typical example of Amazon.com or eBay or your Flipkart, all these companies who are doing offering online services to for you to purchase products, and then you do invoice to the customer and do a post goods issue at the same time to release the or dispatch the product to the customer. Now it may also happen, let's say a sales order have come to you asking you to, let's say, so you've got a sales order from a customer, and in this sales order he is asking you to buy, let's say, pen drive 20 piece, a laptop 2 pieces, and then maybe a webcam 10 pieces. Okay, now at the moment in your stock you have 20 pen drives and one laptop. Okay, 20 pen drives and 10 pen drives and one laptop and 10 webcams. So what will you do? You will immediately invoice those products to the customer. You would say, right now I have 10 pen drives, one laptop, and 10 webcams. I'm directly invoicing you. You make the payment. Okay, so it doesn't necessary that your invoice contains the items which are dispatched equivalent to the number of items in the sales order. He requested for this quantity, but you had these many available immediately. You immediately invoice him, send the products. The remaining quantity you would wait for supplier to supply you, and then you will release it. So is customer bound to pay you for 20 pen drives? Is customer bound to pay you for 20 pen drives? Anybody? You purchased 20 laptops from Flipkart or Amazon.in. Amazon shipped you 10 laptops. Will you pay Amazon for 20 laptops? Will you pay Amazon for 20 laptops? They have only sent you 10 laptops. Will you pay for 20 laptops? You requested 20 laptops. They have sent you because that was there in the stock. There are 10 laptops which are still pending. How many laptops you will pay to Amazon? Anyone? 10, of course. For that, how many laptops Amazon will put in your bill, in your invoice? Can they put 20? They will put 10 only. How much they have sent you, that much they will pay you, right? So this is the actual sales. This is the actual sale which has happened. So invoice item represent the actual sale, is the actual sales. This is the item which you have sent you actually. This is just a request. It has nothing to do with actual sales. Actual sales is this. This is what is your actual sales amount calculated based on. Yeah, this is what you are bound, or you are authorized to collect from payment from the customer. Okay, that's what I wanted to show you. So that's why you have sales order table and sales order item table. So you have a sales order and sales order item. Similarly, you have invoice table and invoice item table. So when you are calculating the total pending amount, which table will you use? Which table you will use to calculate total pending from customer end? How much amount you owe from customer? Which table will you use? Will you use sales order item or will you use invoice item table? Which table do you use to find how much I owe from that customer? Of course, invoice item table. How? Thank you. You all understood the business process. So now what is the requirement? What is the actual business requirement? Let's understand the company. So every company, what is the main goal of any company? What is the main goal of a company? Anyone? What is the main goal of a company? What is the main goal? Absolutely. Profit. Profit is the main goal of a company. Why this company is doing so much? Why he is hiring employee? Why he is hiring products? Why he is doing all these nonsense things? To make profit. That's what the main goal of a company. What could be the problem which can reduce the profit of a company? What are all the problems which can reduce profit of a company? Anyone? Quality of the product. What will happen if you reduce the quality? Your sales will go down, hence your profit decays, right? What are all the reasons which company can actually focus on quality and improve the product quality to increase the sales? That's fine. But what are all the reasons which company cannot control and which affects the profitability of a company directly, which is not in control of company? Technical IT issues, competition. Yes, competition also you cannot control. There are competitors in the market which will hamper your business. Of course, you cannot control those factors. What else? Demand supply you cannot control. Let's say you have ordered so many products and now the rates have reduced. You've got 20 iPhone X in your stock and iPhone doesn't inform their customers or their suppliers before reducing the price. Overnight the prices fell down and now you have that stock which you had earlier got it with 10% margin, and that much price reduction has happened in iPhone. You have a loss. Of course, what else? What you cannot control? Customers. What you can't control for customers? Defaulters. People who got the product, they have used the product but they did not pay you. Debts. That is something different, Charu. That is something which I own from market, from other people, from investors to run my business. Okay, I don't have a money but still I've got to increase my business footprint. I want to invest more into business. I need money, so I take it from share market or I take it from lenders. That is debt. That is debt. But some reason why a company can also fail is because customers don't pay. Customers did not pay you for the services and goods they purchased from you. Those are called defaulters. That's our business scenario. So we have, let's say, Mr. James. So I'm taking a scenario. He's a guy, his name is Mr. James, and he has been given a very important responsibility. Mr. James. Who is Mr. James in the company? He is head of account receivables. This is what Mr. James is in the company. He is head of account receivables. What is the job? What is the job of Mr. James? Mr. James in the company is responsible and head of account receivables. Okay, what is the job profile Mr. James does? So let me take a screenshot of this. Okay, maybe not required. So let me just note down what is that Mr. James would typically do as an account receivable head in the company. So what is the job profile? Job profile or job description is Mr. Or what basically the name is Mr. James, but job profile is account receivables accountant. This is the business role what somebody would work in. The employee name is Mr. James. Yeah. So Mr. James is working here in this company, ITEIO. He is working as a head of account receivable, or his job name is account receivable accountant. What is this person is responsible of in the company? This person in the company has been given a lot of very important tasks. So before we understand those tasks, we need to understand very important aspect for a company, cash. Every company here in this world work for cash, work for profit. So cash has a very important role in a running business, right? Because if you don't have a cash, you can't do the business on regular basis. So it is in best interest of a company to collect outstanding payments, or we call it as receivables in terms of business, outstanding receivables from the customers as quickly as possible, right? Nobody wants to leave account receivable, just like I don't want to leave payment behind students, because it may so happen that if I leave it, a student after taking the training, they will leave, they won't pay me back, or they are the defaulters. And there are cases where there are defaulters, the people who take services and goods and they refuse to pay later point of time, and they would give 100 reasons ki quality acha nahi tha, this was not there. It happens. Typically there are defaulters who does it. Okay, so by quickly turning, this is also important for the company. So by quickly turning the sales into cash, so first a company does a sales, turn that sales into a cash, and a company has put the cash again and ideally to reinvest and increase sales. That's the importance of a cash in a company. So what a company would like to do, want to quickly, as fast as possible, collect the cash from the customer, from their outstanding, and quickly turn the sales into the cash. And a company has to put this cash again into the business to reinvest this, to spend on marketing, IT expenses, increasing the sales, different techniques, also expand its business to different regions, different areas, invest in IT to provide a robust environment for customers and customer experience. That's the main role of cash in the company. Now, what is the role of this account receivable accountant in the company? So the Mr. James here is the account receivable accountant. He is an account receivable accountant in the company. What is his main role? His main role, Mr. James' main role in the company is to manage cash in the company. Is an accountant, is an account receivable accountant in the company whose main role is to manage cash. Okay. Typically, search, display invoices, which means items which are dispatched. They are there in the invoices table that are overdue, and also exceeded a predefined and customizable amount. Let's say I am Mr. James. What my job is here to look at the company data of sales, basically the real sale or dispatch of elements which has happened in invoice header and invoice items table, and find out those invoices which are unpaid, and especially the ones which are unpaid since a long time, because that's high risk, right? कई दिन हो जाता है तो पैसा नहीं मांग सकते हैं, right? You can ask for money, and you can also can't ask money immediately. I sent you the product today, and if I ask money tomorrow, you will say अरे यार अभी तो box ही नहीं खोला है, I didn't even open the box, you are asking me money today. What kind of person are you? You are not a good seller. You are not, I will not buy anything in future. I'm not, am I a thief? Am I running with your money? I will give you, man. Hold on, give me some time. I just got your product, let me start using it. So that is the typical human behavior. So don't ask for money immediately. At the same time, don't delay too much. You need to do a balance. So you have in your company some policies, some payment terms. This is called payment terms typically. Once I invoice you, once I send you the invoice, first I dispatch the goods, goods are received to you. I will give you an invoice. And once you receive the invoice, you maybe have to make the payment in next 10 days. What if the person genuinely forget to pay the money to you? Okay. You need to send a reminder to the person that as per our agreement payment terms, it was told that in next 10 days you are going to pay me with the money back for the services or the goods you purchased. If you are not paying, this is the first reminder. After 3 reminders, I am going to charge you interest. And then even after that you are not paying the amount with interest to me, I would take legal action against you. Let's say you didn't pay me for last, after 1 year, I will take after 1 year a legal action against you, that you consumed my products but you didn't pay for that, right? That's the typical flow in the business. So Mr. James here has a very important job to find out those defaulters or those invoices which exceeds a certain amount and also a certain overdue date. Let's say invoices which are open since more than 10 days or more than 20 days. No correspondence from customer. He is not willing to pay or he has forgot. It's my duty as Mr. James to go ahead and send a reminder to those people who didn't pay. Or let's say there are customers who purchased 3 different products or 3 different orders, and the total amount of this total order has exceeded 1 million, which is a very big amount for my company. If I just catch hold of this one guy who has the most amount which is due, I would get immediately 1 million, right? Typically what you do in exams, you would look at the question paper and try to find a question which is having the highest weightage in terms of marks. That is the question you will attend first, rather than the question which is having low weightage in terms of marks, right? Same thing applies in business. You need to find an invoice or set of invoices which totals to a very big amount. And if you somehow get those invoices, you're going to pull in a lot of cash in the company. So again, you need to make a balance between the amount, also between the due date. If you are not going to ask the customer, even such a long time have been passed, he might have forgot to pay, he would probably not pay. So today maybe he is having money, he may pay you, but tomorrow he may not pay you. So it's a very complicated job for Mr. James. And now what Mr. James does, he will call you. So let's say you are Mr. Robert. Mr. Robert working as a ABAP on HANA developer in the company. So Robert's job is to now give Mr. James a tool or a report program or a transaction in SAP system which he can run and quickly find these people or these companies who have not paid their balances from a certain amount, which Mr. James will tell you. Let's say I want all the defaulters who have not paid since average 20 days and amount greater than 5,000 euros. I want those people name, those company names who haven't paid their invoices on an average of more than 20 days, and the total amount of the order of all their invoices in total is greater than 5,000 euros, right? That's what I want to know. This is the requirement now to Mr. Robert. You are an ABAP developer. You give me a report. You know what you need to do. I don't care. I just want a simple report where I want to see finally the customer name, the average days since invoice was unpaid, the total gross amount in common currency, because business are distributed across multiple countries. There is one place where you are dealing in Japan yen, another place you're dealing in Indian rupee, another place you're dealing in US dollar, Canadian dollar, European euro. So I'm a European company. I want all these gross amount in euros. Okay. So I am supplying to a customer in Japan, in China, in India, in Europe, in US. I want all this data of this guy in a single currency. So currency conversion comes into picture. So customer name, average days since invoice was unpaid, gross amount in a common currency, and a marking indicator that he can be a potential defaulter as per this condition of 20 days and more than 5,000. So get me data for every customer, this data, but also give me a defaulter flag marked for every customer who has exceeded this guy or who has exceeded this thing. Isn't it a fair requirement? Yeah. So basically also classify the customers in relation to the risk of non-payment. So hope you now understand, guys, why are we using this SNWD tables to really simulate a business requirement. This is the true business case which you may find in almost every company, and this is actually a business role, and this is the actual job function of a person working in this role in any typical company. You may get requirements like this, different more requirement. This is something which you can typically relate. That's why I've taken this example. And there is already a demo scenario in SAP system, in every NetWeaver system, which it comes along with the system, which people can relate it to real business like scenario. This is called open item analysis scenario. Business scenario for an a person working as an account receivable accountant in the company, finding the open item analysis, the items which are, or the invoices which are being not paid from a certain time, or due with a certain amount. Okay. So what will be your approach as Mr. Robert? You are now Robert. You are the developer. What would be your approach? This is the requirement from Mr. James. What would you do? So very simple funda fox to achieve or solve a requirement. Any business requirement, if you want to address, break it down in pieces. Okay, break it down into pieces, guys. This is the guru mantra to achieve any business requirement. Don't try to gulp down the whole pizza. You cannot appetite it. You got to eat bite by bite. You got to build the house brick by brick. That's what I always used to tell in your Fiori classes. Brick by brick. Same thing we'll do here. We will now understood the requirement. What is the problem from Mr. James? And to address this problem, we will break it down into first set of pieces. And then further, we will break it down each piece into sub pieces. So let's quickly note down quick action items to quickly review a specification from Mr. James. So you will tell Mr. James, hey, Mr. James, come here. Did I understood the requirement properly? So you will write first a spec. How do you write a spec? With this requirement, the first requirement here is to check how long on average invoices has been outstanding from customers. So customer wise report. This is first need. On an average days, you will calculate the open invoices on an average days. Yeah. First thing. This is first part of the requirement. Then check the total gross amount of order in a common currency. Very important statement. Common currency, guys, because you may have business in different countries and your data in your database table is in different currencies. You got to do some kind of currency conversion to bring it into a common currency, isn't it? That is the second requirement breakdown. Third requirement breakdown, classify the customer regarding his ability to pay his bills based on threshold values of days and amount given by Mr. James. That is a customizable value, right? Mr. James can tomorrow say, okay, today I want to say invoices which are open since last 20 days. Yeah. And then tomorrow, if he has got all the money back in the company, he want to now interested to look at all the invoices open since last 10 days. I will follow up with those customers also. Yeah. So this is something which is a variable, a customizable value. Yeah. Third, perform a dunning. What is dunning, guys? Dunning in a company is a process of sending mass communication to customers regarding their payment notification. That you got to, hello, Mr. Jack, you have purchased 3 laptops, 2 pen drives on certain date from us, and we have noticed that by far you have not paid your bills. Kindly pay Falana Dimka dollars to our below account using a wire transfer or an online transfer or a check deposit to following bank account details. Thank you so much for your cooperation. It was nice having a business with you. Like smart form technique, those who know ABAP, smart form, SAP scripts, that's what you will typically use to perform a dunning. We will not do that. That's a basic ABAP knowledge. But just to find out the people who qualify for dunning is what we need to do. That is something which even Mr. James can do himself because he already knows ABAP. But main problem for Mr. James is performance to get these data. Yeah, we will see that. We will write a program like a bad programmer first of all, and then Mr. James gets worried and gets angry on robot that what kind of performance you have got me. The report is giving me right result, but the performance is so bad. Can you improve it? And then we will learn ABAP on HANA technique as robot and build some knowledge on ABAP on HANA and optimize the performance of this open item invoice scenario. Okay, that's the last could be probably an optional step, check sales history for customer. This could be last, another additional report or additional indicator, but main requirement is addressed by first 3 steps. Yeah, hope you all are with me. helping or understood this requirement? Any questions? Anyone? No questions? Any doubt? Any questions in this requirement? Hope you are all able to relate it with me with the real business. Please confirm in the chat box. Is that requirement clear to all of you? And the breakdown from Robert to Mr. James. This is the email which I will send to Mr. James saying that, boss, I will do this much. Is that okay for you? This is my spec. Okay. It's not actually a spec. It's bad. But this is what I would say in a nutshell my requirement is about. So now Mr. James receives this email, opens it up and understand, okay, wow, good. Robert, you're a nice person. You understood my requirement well. Please proceed with your development. Now it comes to the Robert's team, and there's a team of developer where now you got to deep dive inside each of these requirements and build the algorithm. So let me build the algorithm to solve this puzzle. So I will go to the deep dive and write down the steps and tables and different steps involved to write my code. So step one, as a developer, what I will do, I have a database table where I have all the invoices. So I will get all the open invoices from invoice header table, and for this the table name is snwd underscore inv head table, and the condition is where payment status column is blank, which means customer has not yet paid. If customer has paid you the money, the payment status become P. So since all the invoices from invoice header table where payment status is empty. Okay, first thing. Second thing, I need to know the name, customer ID. Basically in system the customer is recognized by customer ID. So get all the invoices from invoice header table. This is step number one. Okay, then which are unpaid, of course, all the invoices invoice header table which are unpaid, that's a condition and that's a table. After you do that, you got to calculate, or you also got to get the customer ID. Okay, so you got to also get the customer ID for which this invoice is pending. Let me show you some sample data. So I'll create this invoice table here with some sample data. So let's say this is your invoice header table. Let me squeeze the width to just make it optimized for our PPT. And yesterday I already showed you the join condition between the sales order and business partner table. So we have a business partner table as well here. So I just delete this. Oops. Delete this column. And now I just put here my invoice table. So there's an invoice number or whatsoever you call it, invoice key. And then let's say you have in this invoice table created at when this invoice was created, and then you have the partner ID for which customer this invoice was created. On the other table you have the partner ID, which is the GUID, and actual customer ID. This was the node key, if you remember, just a GUID to connect these tables. Yeah, just a GUID to connect these tables. So that's what the setup we have. Now if I write down here, the key is 1, created was on 1/1/2000, or let's say this month, we are right now in the month of November, so 1/11/2017. Partner ID was X. Then there is another invoice which was created on 2/11/2017 with again the same partner. He has purchased something in the next day, and then again on 2/11/2017, Mr. Y, the partner Y, have purchased something, and on the same day 2/11/2017 another purchase was happened by X with a different invoice number. And then fifth record is 3/11/2017 there is a purchase from X again, and then 7/11/2017 there is a purchase by Mr. Y. Now if you look at here X and Y, you have customer ID as, let's say, SAP, or maybe let's say ABC Incorporation has purchased. Basically it's a customer ID. It will be typically like 0001. There is another column in this table called company name. Okay, that column has actual name of the company, and this is, let's say, 0002. So that's your sample data now. So what is the requirement here is to join based on these two columns. To fulfill the need, you got to do a join between these two columns. Yeah, that's a join condition is going to be there. And now look at the algorithm. Get all the open invoices from invoice header table. This is the invoice header where payment status is blank. Let's say these are all the ones for which payment has not been made. And get the customer ID from second table. So which query will you use? Anyone. Which query you will use if you want to select data from two tables? What type of query are you going to use if you want to select data from two tables? Perfect. You got to use the join. So you would first get the list. Step 2, you would loop. Okay. Step 2 is you would loop at each open invoice which you have got it from the table and which is unpaid by customer, open invoice, or basically unpaid invoice by customer. Okay, and then calculate the total days since when it's open, and also the amount. Okay, you would be calculating the total of amount as well, how much amount it is pending. But let's not go into amount right now. That's a second requirement, calculating the gross amount. So right now you would just calculate the total number of days or which is open and how many invoices are open. This you need the count. So you can see here for X you have 1, 2, 3, 4 invoices which are open. For Y you have 1, 2 invoices which are open. Yeah. So total, how many invoices per customer with customer ID, how many total invoices which are open, and how many days they are open. So days you will calculate based on the difference between current date and this created at date. Okay, that's what you got to do. So let me take this into a new slide over here and then write down the logic here. So what you will do is you will loop at this data and then calculate the days since which it is open, which is equals to current date minus created date. This will give you the number of days. So let's say today's date is, let's say, 10th. Okay, so let's say current date is 10th of 11. So for first invoice you will say 10 days, second one it is 9 days, third one 9 days, fourth one 9 days. So like that, like this you got to calculate. So final result set, what it will look like, let me produce the final result set with 3 columns based on customer. Okay, based on customer you would need. So I want to see final result is customer ID, number of invoices open, and total days since when these invoices are open. Okay, so customer ID is 0001 and now this is X. So find X here. So ये कितना दिन हो गया, 10 days हो गया. Let's say today is 10th 11, so this is 10 days. Total days is 10 days plus this is count is 1. So one invoice I found. Another invoice I found for this is open since 9 days, and this that is another invoice I add, and then again move on. This is also X, so this is open again since 9 days, and again I find one more invoice, so total 1, and then one more invoice I found, and this is open since last 7 days. or let's say 8 days. So total is how much? 18 plus 10, 28. Let me open Calci to speed up this. 18 plus 8 plus 10. These many is the total. So 36 days is the total days since when invoices are open. How many invoices are open? Total 4 invoices are open. 1, 2, 3 and 4. Can anybody tell me what is the formula for average? Anybody? Average days open. Absolutely. Number of days divided by total number of invoices. So that becomes 36 by 4, 9. This is the average number of days since when invoices are open. Understood this? Anyone? Everybody understood this requirement? How are we calculating? We got to do this now in the system using our coding. So for y के लिए एक और दो, two invoices are open, total invoices are 2. Since how many days they are open? This one is open since last 9 days and this one is open since last 2 days. So 9 plus 2 equals to 11. 11 by 2 equals to 5.5 is the average days since when invoices are open. Is this first part clear to everyone? Any doubt in this? Anybody? Any doubt in this? How to calculate average days since when invoices are open? Any doubt in step 1? I am writing every single line in the PPT so that you can understand this business process. To calculate first the average days since when invoices are open. So that is step one, number 1, basically to get the average number of invoices, average number of days since when invoices are open. Okay, so in this you need to basically calculate the total days since when it's open, how many invoices are open, and then total days divided by number of invoices equals to average days since invoice is open. That's your first result of your first part. If you are able to complete this, you have something to show to Mr. James, isn't it? That's first part of your requirement. Or I can also, uh, if I'm a good project manager, I would break down this requirement, write a spec, write the algorithm, and distribute across multiple developers. So ये A करेगा, ये B करेगा, ये C करेगा, D करेगा. I will divide in my team. Everybody does their job. Finally, they all come to me, getting all their result sets. I will combine everything, and my final report is ready. I'll go to Mr. James, demo to him, and get all the credits. Yeah, that's the game. Okay, next, what is the algorithm for this? Check the total gross amount for order or invoice in common currency. Which table will you use, guys, to do this? Anybody? Will you use order table to do this? Anybody? Will you use order table? No, you would use invoice line item table because that's what you are supposed to ask him for payment. You can't use order item table because order item table only contain the item which he has ordered. Invoice item table contains the items which you actually delivered, for which you are billing him. Yeah, that's what you got to do. So step number 1, get the items. I think the bullet should look same like the above one to get us uniform. And step 1 is to get the items from invoice item table. Okay, invoice item table, which are, of course, these are all the items which are shipped. We are not taking from order item table. These are all the items which are shipped already. And then you have the invoice header data for the invoices which are open. Okay, you have invoice header data for the invoices which are open, and you have the business partner data in invoice table. So if you want to know open invoices, you again have to go to invoice header table where payment status is empty. So this is first part where you get item in invoice item table. Second is invoice header to get open invoices, and BPA table for customers. names. That is your second. So tables, let me note down table names. Invoice item table is snwd underscore inv underscore items. This is the table. Condition is all items for an open invoice, which is unpaid actually. Second is invoice header table, which is snwd underscore invoice table. Condition is payment status is empty. Third is business partner, snwd underscore bpa business partner table. Condition is actually only those for which invoices are open. So you would use a join to get them. Yeah, join with the invoice header table. You would do it, join with invoice header table. Once you do this, you will get all the items. You will loop at each of the item. And one important point which you got to do is currency conversion. So in step 2, loop at each item and does a currency conversion of gross amount to a common currency. Let's say, let's take euro. We will convert it to euro. I will show you there's a function module which does this job for you. Okay, so you would be converting it to the common currency, let's say euro currency. And once the conversion is done, in step 3, you would calculate the total gross amount which is pending per customer. With this, your Mr. James will be again very happy, because now you're telling him how much amount is pending. Let's reproduce this over here. So you would have now the items table. In the items table, I can't write actually all the records actually. Exchange rate, absolutely we'll use exchange rate table. So I can't write here all the items because it's going to be so complex. So typically just say an invoice ID, item ID, and gross amount. And then you of course have a column for currency in which the item was sold. So insert a column on the right. Item was sold. So let me just put an invoice ID, which is 1, for which I sold an item, let's say AA, or let's say I1. I sold with 200 JPY. Second, again same invoice, I sold item 2 in 500 JPY. In second order, I sold I3 at 300 US dollar. In same, I sold an I5 in 500 US dollar. In third one, I sold an I2 with 650 euros. In third, again I sold I4 in 410 euros, and so on. You have the item data, and this customer ID, it has also the customer name. So you will join this table based on key with this key, get all the items, loop at each item, calculate the total, and does a currency conversion to Japan yen to euros. That way you will get for one customer. At the end, your result should be look like, I'll just show you the result set. You should have actually this time a customer name. Customer ID is also good. So customer ID and name, let me just take name, and let's say customer name is ABC Incorporation. The total gross amount for ABC Incorporation. So this invoice X was there. So here is 1. So this is the 1 1 500 or 200 700 700 JPY converted to euro. Okay, so I'm just putting here sample data 700 converted I'm not doing conversion. JPY to euro. That should be your total amount uh, for this invoice. One invoice actually. X has multiple invoices, guys. Yeah, X has multiple invoices, so that will all be totaled over here. Then if you see X ka other invoice is second one, so इसके लिए 300 500 USD. That again you convert 500 plus 300 800 800 USD converted to euro plus. So this comes here is 800 USD convert to euro. Like this you keep on totaling the gross amount. Similarly for second customer, let's say uh, semiconductors incorporation, you would get, let's say it's a Y. So Y के लिए invoice number 3 is this 650 plus 410 1060. So 1060 euro in euro only. So likewise you keep on adding the amount and you would get total gross amount per customer which is pending, isn't it? That's how you will calculate. Is that also clear to everyone? Is that clear to everyone? Average days we calculated, gross amount in a common currency we calculated by doing currency conversion, and then now you know the threshold value. If the total amount is more than 5,000 or average day open, or you can be and also it's more than 5 days, okay, more than 5 days, then we have actually we have to say yes, fine, this is a default, this could be a defaulter in future. Fine. Is that clear to all of you? The calculation of defaulter is later on easy. You can just compare with threshold value and find out the result. Now, just since the time is already gone for the class, I would end the class here, explaining you the main requirement. In next class, we will start developing this in the system with coding. If you can't control your feelings and emotion to see the solution, how will it look like in actual system? I have already built it. Just let me show you the program in ABAP on Eclipse. We will build it line by line. So you see here YEPM01 plain vanilla. This is the one. So here I am doing all the currency conversion, calculating the total average, calculating the amount, all that. You see currency conversion in common currency, doing all this in ABAP logic with bad as a bad programmer, and also tagging the customers who could be potential defaulters and displaying it in a result set. So if we run this, let's see what do we get. I execute and now we should get the result over here, marking the customers who have exceeded with the tagging, those who have exceeded the certain amount. It will get a special X indicator, and those who have not exceeded the amount will not get that X, but you will actually get the data for all customers in the system, aggregated data, total amount of unpaid invoice and total average days, and the ones which exceeds the threshold limit will get a X at the end of the name. Yeah, so let's run it. You see it's taking too much of time, and that's what Mr. James will not like it. Okay, Mr. James will throw this report. He will say कि यार कितना time ले रहा है. We need to now slowly go towards you can understand where am I taking you. In next subsequent class, I will implement this. I will show you that it has performance problems, and we will solve this performance problem with new techniques with ABAP on HANA, pushing down some part of the logic to HANA DB using information model, using CDS view, using AMDPs, using different techniques, ADBC. Yeah, all that we will apply. Same this will be our same use case across now this entire course. We will build our Fiori app also on this use case remains the same for entire course now. Please understand this use case, and we will just see how to improve it with different techniques, and we will compare the result with each technique in the system. Okay, it didn't print the result. I think I forgot the right statement. Let me quickly go down, and yeah, this is the right statement, guys. I forgot it, sorry. Let me just uncomment this. I forgot to print the right statement to show this result. Maybe uh, I would show this result in a different way using a special API which ABAP gives you. Let me just do that. So ABAP gives you a special API to showcase any output in kind of a display mode. So this is there's a reuse API in ABAP which is produced from NetWeaver 7.4. It's called demo output, CL demo output. And then in this we can say next section, and then I can give the title of the report, open item analysis for none other than Mr. James. Yeah, that's my title of the report. And then CL demo output, it has all the static methods. So hope you all know oops ABAP. I'm calling all the static method of this class, and then here you will call a method of this class to display all the data output. You can use write data, and then in this you pass the table which has all the data. So my table is RT figures, it has all the data. And then finally CL demo output, you can say display. Wool. Good. Let's go and run this now. So it will open up a pop-up for you, and in that pop-up it will display you the data. You don't have to write a write statement actually to get this result displayed on the UI. Activate this and run this report. You would see this report. You can also add a timestamp and calculate the time which this it will take, the report, how much time this report will take. You can do that. Let me just execute it. And now let's say it's running, and there you go. You can see the result, open item analysis for none other than Mr. James, and you see the business partner ID, company name, average days 723 days. This invoice is open for this company in US dollar. This is the total amount. The customer tagging is X because they all have exceeded the limit. So let me change this average number of days and amount. So I want only the customer which exceeds, let's say, this amount, and the total number of days is, let's say they exceed, let's say 730. The customers which exceed this amount and the number of average days also is 730. Those customers I want to see in as tagged customers. So I'll change quickly the report. So where is my report? Okay, all these unnecessary reports are displayed here. Yeah, this is my report. So you'll see some condition here. You see 2000. So the amount was 2000. I changed this amount to this, and I say all the ones which has more than 730 days which are open, those should be marked as X. So that is the customizable value I was talking about, which we can change, which Mr. James would like to change and see the tagging for the customers. So let's see now. And you see very few of them which you would probably do a dunning on those customers which exceeded that amount, and that 730 is the average days. So these are all the ones which you would like to send a quick dunning, or want to do a quick dunning on these customers, or send a reminder to only these customers because their invoices are open since more than 730 days, and amount also exceeding that copied amount 288,920. Yeah, so this is the kind of results I would like to produce at the end of the day in next class. And then also an optimized code just by writing some open SQL statements. So in this I'm using open SQL, which I will show you, and then some more optimized open SQL statements I will write, and then we will do a code push down using information model. We will build attribute view, analytical view, and calculation views in the system. We will see how to do AMDPs, how to write CDS views to achieve the same result using those new techniques, and compare the result of what you're producing here and what those other techniques would produce. Yeah, hope you would have got some idea. So there's a link over here. What is this for? Yeah, I will upload the PPT, and I will also upload this this example. If you see this example, I think this example is already there in our blog. You all can download and check it. I will upload the PPT, and some of the programs which I developed yesterday. I will upload them in text file. You can download that text file, paste it in your ABAP on Eclipse system, and then run them. They would produce the data if you are using the server the way I asked you to set up in Cal, because Cal has these tables and data inside the tables. So these programs will run seamlessly in your ABAP system because you have used SAP Cal. Yeah. Okay, a ABAP programming model for digital business. I don't know what this blog is about. Maybe I'll go through this. Okay, good. Fine. I think they are using CDS views here. Yeah. So that's all about it. Maybe I'll check this. So maybe some example if we can take, and then you see a Fury app is consuming this data coming from CDS view. Correct. That's what our goals will be. Building an application in ABAP in such a way that leverage the power of SAP HANA and its performance capabilities, and then consuming that data finally in the front end in Fury app. So this can be a good example for you to learn. But something is very important for all of us is to first understand what pain points we have. Let's do a quick performance analysis on this program, or maybe I will do that. We are already running out of time. Yesterday I consumed 20 more minutes. So let's close the session here. Next class we'll build this step by step using our algorithm in PPT. And then I will also do a SQL code inspector check on this using performance DB variant, and see what is that something which SAP will suggest you to avoid doing. And then we will improve the performance by writing some more open SQL in a better way, see the improvement. And if you want more, squeeze more, then you got to use these new guys called CDS, AMDPs and stuff like that. So that will be our future goal. Together with that, we will also understand new capabilities like smart data access using ALV, fuzzy search. We have features like type ahead feature with ABAP on HANA. And then we have capabilities like new OpenSQL syntax, some of which you have already seen, like data declaration is all now possible in inline data declaration. We have some more like creating table using value hashtag, at the rate of, concatenation operator have been improved. So those OpenSQL enhancements we will see in detail in upcoming chapters. So with that, it's a wrap on today's class. See you in the next weekend. Have a nice day and goodbye. Remember, next week the link is subjected